Some big moves could be coming for the Toronto Maple Leafs as Elliotte Friedman on his latest 32 Thoughts podcast revealed who could be joining Craig Berube's coaching staff this offseason. And this could be very interesting going forward. And we're looking at the construction of the Maple Leafs. And some fans are actually fired up about this change. We're going to break all that down in this episode. Before we do, if you're a part of the 80% who are not subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We produce daily Leafs content, sometimes multiple videos a day. So if you don't want to miss out on the latest Toronto Maple Leafs news, make sure to hit that button as we're now approaching 11,000 subscribers. So thank you guys for your continued support. And thank you guys for allowing us to hit 10,000. It means the world to Darius and myself. But Darius, a lot to go over today. A lot of Maple Leafs news we're going to have to cover in a bunch of videos. We're going to start with Craig Berube's coaching staff, and it seems like some moves could be coming the Toronto Maple Leafs way in the form of assistant coaches, and some fans are upset. Some fans are curious about it. I'm very excited to hear your opinion on it, Darius. I have my own opinion, which I'll save till you get your opinion out here. But you can see a bunch of things. We can start with this. Mike Yeo is headed for a new opportunity, quote, closer to home. He is from Toronto, and his former assistant coach in St. Louis has taken over in Toronto. Some rumors are speculating that Mike Yeo could be coming to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's what people are saying, that he could be joining Berube's staff. We'll see, and we'll get into Elliotte Friedman's report here in a second, but what are your thoughts on this one, first of all? It seems like Mike Yeo could be doing that.
Interesting report here. Well, he didn't really say that he's going to be joining the Leafs. He just said closer to home, and I did read last night that it could be the Ottawa Senators, because that is close to home for him too, so it sounds like it could be Ottawa. It could also be the Leafs. The funniest part about all of this to me is Mike Yeo was fired for Craig Berube in 2019 when the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup in St. Louis. So for him to join the Leafs coaching staff as the coach that got fired for Craig Berube, I think that'd be a little funny. But I do think it's interesting that coaches like this, like Mike Yeo and even Marc Savard, like we saw last week, are leaving their jobs. They're not being fired or anything like that. They're leaving their jobs. So I wonder if that does lend to the fact that they will be joining the Leafs over some other coaches, which Elliotte Friedman, and we'll get to, alluded to on his podcast as well yesterday. So some interesting stuff. These guys are leaving their current positions to want to coach closer to home, at least in Mike Yeo's case. So could that be the Leafs? It could be Ottawa. I did read that too, but I think it's a very real possibility. He could end up with the Leafs too, because we heard that Craig Berube wants a former head coach as his assistant coach as well. So that would fit the bill.
Yeah, very much so. And again, interesting candidate there. Some fans are a bit curious, but we're seeing a lot of coaches move, whether it's teams, whether it's just for their own personal, which is good to see. They're kind of getting treated more like players now than they used to in the past. But let's dive into some things with Elliotte Friedman here on his 32 Thoughts podcast. He said some of the names I have heard that have been connected a bit to Toronto have been Brad and who mutually left Winnipeg, and Lane Lambert, of course, name out there too. Toronto, knowing them, they're casting a wide net. And we'll go into the full graphic here. Darius, what are your thoughts on this? Obviously, this is a very interesting one. Links two potential coaches this time to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Brad and Lane. So what are your thoughts on these guys? Again, some fans are upset about this. Not necessarily upset, but curious. But it seems like Craig Berube's coaching staff is starting to shape out a little bit.
I do like Elliott's kind of speculation or whatever he's reporting. I know he knows something. He has some insight. So I'm sure the Leafs are doing their due diligence and interviewing a bunch of coaches, and I'm sure Berube's involved in that. But these are two coaches that don't currently have jobs. Lane Lambert was just fired by the New York Islanders, and we have some, fan reaction to that as well, and what type of coach Lane Lambert is. So he doesn't have a job. I just think it might be the guys who left their current positions who are rumored to come to the Leafs that will be with the Leafs, right? Because that seems a little more concrete to me. Why would you leave your current position if you're not going to get another position? Like if you're just going to leave your job, doesn't really make sense to me. So I would think Marc Savard at least is, pretty sure it's going to happen with Toronto. It's a good fit, and he should probably fix the power play. I think that would really help the power play, but in terms of Lane Lambert and anyone else, I'm sure they're just doing their due diligence, talking to everybody who's available. I'm not sure that happens, though. I'm not even sure that would be a great fit based on what happened on Long Island this season as well.
Yeah, very, very interesting. A couple of links, though, which is good to see. I mean, we're starting to figure out now what kind of player, or what kind of coaches, that Craig Berube is going to want to start bringing in. And again, you name some experienced guys here, and I wonder if, I don't think Todd McLellan now is on the table to join the Toronto Maple Leafs. We used to talk about that for a while because there was rumors that are circulating about Craig Berube wanting to bring in a former head coach. It could be an interesting option as one of these guys, and I don't know. It's Do you understand the fans upset? Why fans are not upset necessarily? I saw a bunch of tweets out there that were not calling out the Leafs, but a bit confused. You can see here, Alex Lane Lambert sabotaged the Isles season. Nothing will convince me of the opposite. So fans are not a huge fan, not a huge fan of Lane Lambert. Now, is it? I don't know if I would agree to that fully, but again, assistant coach, at least, it wouldn't be horrible. Obviously, if we're talking about bringing in Lane Lambert as the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, we'd probably be an interesting one here. It'd be awfully nice if the Islanders stop blowing leads at third period. Lane Lambert's about, he's obviously not happy. People are very upset with Lambert. So I wonder how much Leafs fans would appreciate potentially bringing in a guy like Lane Lambert to the team, because their own Islanders fans definitely weren't a fan.
Well, as soon as I saw his name pop up, like from Elliotte Friedman, I was like, all right, that's pretty interesting because he was fired this year and maybe he could fit as an assistant coach. So I just went on a little bit of, a research spree, and I wanted to see how Islanders fans feel about him. And everything that they thought was wrong with him or what he did to the team is exactly what the Leafs need to move away from. So I don't know if that's a really good fit. I don't know what's happening behind closed doors right now in terms of interviews and what they're discussing. So maybe he could be a good fit. Maybe he will bring something different to the Leafs if he were to be the assistant coach. I just don't think they're going that way. I'm sure they're interviewing everyone just like they did for the head coach job. But based on what Islanders fans are saying and criticism of his, I don't know if that would be a good fit in Toronto. And I'm heavily leaning personally towards Marc Savard. I think that would actually be a really good fit. I did like when that name popped up and everything I've seen out of him. So in terms of assistant coaches, the Leafs have a lot. So they can actually fit all of these guys if they really wanted to. But we also haven't heard anything about Mike Van Ryn, for example, if he's returning. We haven't heard anything about returning assistant coaches or lack thereof. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned the Marc Savard thing. We had a video on that, a few days ago, about how he's supposedly the favorite, and some fans thought that, or some reporters were saying that it's already kind of set in stone that he's going to be joining the assistant coaching staff. Elliotte Friedman in his 32 Thoughts podcast did not mention his name necessarily, but you can see here in the last little sentence of this quote that they're casting a wide net, kind of like they did for the head coaching search, even though it was more private. So I would assume that the way Toronto Maple Leafs are going about this whole situation from Berube onwards is cast a wide net, keep it behind closed doors for the most part regarding who it is, and then pick the guy that they think is best. And if that ends up being Lane Lambert, then, I mean, that's fine if they do their due diligence. But like you said, fans are, it's usually, now this is obviously fans' opinion, so it's not going to impact what the actual front office thinks, right. But I would agree with you. I think what he did for the Islanders, the Leafs want to stay away from, at least just that style. That being said, if they think that he could come in as a role or in a role with assistant coach that's a bit different and could take the positives, if Islanders fans probably don't think there's any, but the positives that Lane Lambert had from previous years and things like that, and then bring it into the Leafs, it could work out well. Any final thoughts before I wrap up? An interesting one. Some moves are coming, and I suspect that this assistant coaching search will be done very soon because they need to start figuring out what players they're going to bring in, and I don't think they're going to do that until they figure out their coaching staff.
Yeah, this is going to happen quickly because the draft is this month, right? It's in just a couple of weeks, and they got to get everything figured out before then to know what they're going to do with their roster and obviously going into the draft. So it's going to happen quickly, I think, over the next week or two. And you brought up a good point. I wonder if Lane Lambert is a decent fit in Toronto just based off of he's not a head coach anymore. Like he can focus in on something they would hire him specifically to do. So I wonder, that's a good point. I do wonder if that happens. But in my opinion, I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything. I wouldn't hire Lane Lambert just based on what I saw on Long Island, and I would go the route of like Marc Savard, and I would keep Mike Van Ryn as well. A lot of people have been critical of him. I didn't think the defense was that bad this year.
I agree, and they probably will keep him because of that Calgary connection. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. Are you happy, or would you be happy with any of these candidates? Let us know down below. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you soon.